In the bustling streets of ancient Athens, one man stood apart from the crowd. Socrates, the philosopher, was not just a thinker. He was a voice of reason in a sea of chaos. But what if I told you that he held a deep-seated disdain for democracy? Now, let us take a moment to sink into this paradox. How can a man who championed the voices of the people, who often engaged in dialogues with everyday Athenians, harbor such negative emotions towards the very system that gave them a voice? The truth delves into the complexity of human nature and the dark corners of collective decision-making. Socrates believed that democracy, while grand in its ideals, often fell victim to the whims of the masses. In his eyes, it gave power to those least equipped to wield it. Imagine a ship helmed not by a skilled captain, but by an unruly crew. Chaos on the water. That is how Socrates perceived Athenian democracy. But was it simply about the masses? It was about knowledge. For Socrates, true wisdom was a precious commodity. He famously claimed, "The only thing I know is that I know nothing." This humility was his guiding principle. He posited that knowledge should rule, not popularity. And why? Because unqualified opinions can lead to disastrous outcomes. In Athens, every citizen could vote, regardless of their understanding of complex issues. In such an environment, persuasive rhetoric often outpaced well-reasoned argument. Think about a charismatic speaker drawing crowds with slick phrases while the substance of their message remained shallow. This was the very democratic phenomenon that alarmed Socrates. He saw the potential for danger in this unrestricted power. The vote of a simple farmer could outweigh the wisdom of a philosopher, the insights of a strategist, or the experience of those trained in governance. A well-meaning electorate could easily be swayed by emotional appeal rather than rational discourse. This phenomenon is perhaps a timeless concern, echoing through the corridors of modern democracies as well. Here's where it gets interesting. Socrates favored the idea of a philosopher-king, an enlightened ruler equipped with knowledge and wisdom rather than merely popularity. But can you fathom a society where leaders are determined more by skill than by public opinion? His vision of governance was starkly different from the democratic ideal, and therein lay his... This view is not merely a rejection of democracy, but rather a yearning for a deeper understanding of it. Socrates recognized that democracy could produce a myriad of outcomes, good and bad, but without a guiding force of knowledge and virtue, it could easily veer towards tyranny of the majority. This idea is deeply profound in the contemporary context. We often see instances where the loudest voice drowns out the more nuanced perspectives. Think about it. How many times have you witnessed mobilized masses supporting ideas that lack foundation? Socrates stood as a warning against that very tendency. Let us step back to Athens in Socrates' time. His disdain was also a reflection of the ignorance he witnessed in political discussions. In his dialogues, he would engage with Athenian leaders and citizens alike, prodding their beliefs and revealing the gaps in their understanding. His method was to illuminate ignorance, not merely criticize it. This was Socratic irony. Rather than participating in the political fray, he chose instead to critique it, shedding light on its flaws. His trial exemplified this. Found guilty of corrupting the youth and impiety, his conversations had enraged those in power who felt threatened by his probing questions. His death penalty highlights another layer of his beliefs. The very democracy that he critiqued was prepared to silence him. Ironically, it was a system founded on freedom that could enact such a fate on a man who sought to elevate it. This paradox captures the essence of Socrates' view on democracy, full of potential, yet fraught with the risk of self-destruction. He loved Athens, but feared for its future. How do we balance the beauty of democratic freedoms with the reality of human fallibility? As voices of populism rise today, one must ask, are we engaging in informed discussions, or are we exchanging well-crafted sound bites? Socrates might argue that democracy should not just allow the vote, but should also foster education and mindfulness among its citizens. Imagine the world he envisioned, one where political power is mixed with philosophical wisdom. In this realm, citizens would engage deeply, weighing options and implications, studying the consequences of their choices. But of course, this requires effort and a collective desire for improvement. He did not completely reject the democratic process, but felt it needed to be refined. Rather than throwing away the system, Socrates would likely advocate for cultivating an informed citizenry, one that prioritizes virtue and wisdom over mere popularity. So, as we navigate our modern democracies, let us reflect on Socrates. His legacy isn't just a critique of democracy. It's an invitation to consider how we can evolve. What if we push for a greater emphasis on knowledge and wisdom? How would our political discussions change? Would they be more civil, more enriching, perhaps even more transformative? In a world of headlines and sound bites, the Socratic method reminds us of the profundity of questions over answers. As we engage in discourse, let us remember to pause, reflect, and could the path towards enlightenment be just as vital as the ideals of democracy itself? As we ponder Socrates' take on democracy, let that question linger. The real reason behind his disdain might not only unveil his fears, but also guide our contemporary struggles with governance and society. Now, let us explore the community aspect of Socrates' thoughts. While he critiqued democracy, he did not dismiss the value of the community's voice. He understood that in a society, individuals contribute their insights and experiences. But he was adamant that these contributions must arise from a place of genuine understanding, not mere desire for popularity. Imagine a modern parallel. How often do we see social media platforms amplifying the loudest voices, overshadowing thoughtful discourse? The phenomenon of cancel culture arises from swift public judgment, where a single misstep can lead to outrage, often devoid of the context or the bigger picture. In this light, Socrates' fears resonate more than ever. He would likely urge us to step back and reflect. Are we making decisions based on emotion or understanding? Are we engaging with our fellow citizens to enlighten one another or to simply push an agenda? After all, when a community rushes to judge without knowledge, it risks becoming a mob, driven by fleeting sentiments rather than reasoned thought. Socrates believed that democracy should empower people to grow in wisdom and understanding. He envisioned a society where citizens learn from their differences, seek truth together, and prioritize dialogue over debate. This is the essence of a truly democratic society, a continuous conversation, not just a constant conflict. But let us tie this back to Socrates' own fate. The democratic process that led to his condemnation serves as a cautionary tale. He stood accused not because he was guilty, but because he threatened the status quo. His pursuit of wisdom and virtue posed an uncomfortable challenge to those who wielded power over the masses. The irony of his trial illustrates a deeper truth. Democracy can easily become a tool for silencing dissent when collective fear overrides reason. Socrates' interactions with the elite and the common people alike revealed a troubling notion that quality of discourse can diminish in the face of populist pressure. What might Socrates say about the current state of political discourse? He'd probably point out the abundant misinformation that spreads like wildfire. Today's digital world serves up news at the speed of a click, and yet, the depth of understanding often lags far behind. The unexamined life is not worth living, he famously stated, urging us to reflect deeply. He would challenge us to engage critically with the information we consume. Are we accepting ideas simply because they resonate with our existing beliefs? Or are we willing to interrogate them, seeking deeper truths beyond the surface? Furthermore, Socrates would likely advocate for a revival of philosophical thinking in politics and civic education. Imagine a curriculum in schools not just focused on rote facts, but instead emphasizing critical thinking teaching students to wrestle with ideas, to explore ethics, and to understand complex social dynamics. This would create a citizenry that is not only engaged, but capable of making informed choices. Imagine the potential unleashed not just in elections, but in everyday interactions. When we cultivate wisdom and understanding collectively, we elevate the entire democratic process. The priority shifts from merely winning arguments to seeking truths together, leading to healthier communities and better governance. Yet, one must face the inherent obstacles for this optimistic vision to take root. It requires a societal shift and acknowledgement that democracy demands more than participation. It requires informed engagement, patience, and a commitment to empathy. Can we foster a culture where questioning is celebrated rather than condemned? Where public figures are questioned rigorously, but also encouraged to explain their rationale rather than simply defend their position? The Socratic approach emphasizes dialogue, where competing ideas can coexist, and through this synthesis, we may find clarity. The crux of Socratic philosophy might lead us to a pivotal question. Can democracy thrive without a foundation of ethical reasoning? When leaders prioritize power over principle, hypocrisy can easily seep into the cracks of governance. As we reflect on the intricacies of Socrates' views, it becomes evident that his disdain for democracy was not a rejection of its principles, but rather a call for elevating the discourse inherent within it. The true potential of democracy lies in its ability to adapt, to grow, and to educate its citizens. So, how do we translate these insights from ancient Greece into contemporary practice? Perhaps we begin with conversations that push us out of our comfort zones and into the realms of empathy and critical engagement. In public forums where conflicts often arise, consider choosing dialogue over debate. What if we approached each conversation with curiosity? Instead of aiming to win, we could seek to understand, to explore each other's perspectives. This shift could lay the groundwork for meaningful, transformative exchanges that transcend superficial disagreements. Furthermore, we can advocate for civic platforms that encourage participation while emphasizing the importance of informed opinions. Imagine town halls that inspire collective learning rather than mere voting sessions. As we take Socrates' lessons to heart, let us remember that democracy is a living entity, much like a garden. It requires nurturing, care, and above all, knowledge to flourish. In a world that is often divided and reactive, the journey towards understanding can illuminate pathways to a brighter democratic future. Yes, Socrates would be critical of many facets of modern democracy, but ultimately, he would remind us that the quest for wisdom is a shared endeavor. By honoring this legacy, we allow ourselves to create a community that is not only active in its participation, but also rich in understanding. In doing so, we honor Socrates and pave the way for a democracy worth believing in. So, linger on this idea. Could the Socratic approach to democracy inspire a resolve to elevate our discourse today? As you engage with the world around you, ask yourself, are you nurturing understanding, or are you merely participating in the noise? Each small shift matters, not just for the next vote,